Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the second edition to my memories of Africa. And this will be the story of a little adventure we had on our very first trip in 2004 with Mike and Shay. And if you haven't seen the first video that explains that trip, it's on my channel. You can just go look at my YouTube channel, and you can find that first video, and I'll give the complete description of what this trip was all about and everything. So while you're if you're going back to the channel, or if you happen to be watching this on a computer or your phone, how about just taking a minute to subscribe to my channel, hit the like button, and also hit the notification, so when I do put out a new video, you'll be notified. But at least do me a favor and subscribe, because I'd really like to get this channel going. All right, I really appreciate that. Okay, so let's get started on the story of our trip to Soroti. Now let me set the stage. Uganda in 2004, Uganda, Africa, was in a war. Now, they weren't in a war with another country, and it wasn't exactly a civil war either. It's a little difficult to explain, but there was a general from the Ugandan army that went absence without leave from the army, went to the Congo and started a war. Started several wars. He actually started a war with the Democratic Republic of Congo. He started this guerrilla warfare, and to do that, he kidnapped and used child soldiers. I'm sure you've heard stories or documentaries or things about the African child soldiers. Well, he was one of the main culprits of this. He would steal children from southern Sudan and from northern Uganda, and he would use those children in his little war with he had beefs with Uganda, he had beefs with Sudan, he had beefs with the Congo, and he was just a nuisance. And his little army that he recruited from disgruntled members of the military in Uganda, and also from the Congo, and even some from Sudan. And then he had all these kidnapped children that he would train to be soldiers, and the girls he would use as slaves, sex slaves, and things you can imagine. It was awful. And of course, Uganda literally declared war on him. And but the problem was that Uganda couldn't pursue him into the Congo or into Sudan, because that would be a violation of their sovereign soil, and so that could start a war between those countries. So basically all Uganda could do is, when he came into Uganda to kidnap children, they would try to capture him and try to capture or kill his soldiers and reclaim the children, and it was a mess. Okay, well, I'll show you a map right here of the area for which he would come down and kidnap children from, right to the edge of Soroti, a town called Soroti in northern Africa. Well, if you remember from my last video, we were having Thanksgiving in Uganda at a missionary's house, and while we were there, somebody mentioned a guy in Soroti, that an American who had an organization in Soroti that would rescue these children from being kidnapped. He would actually either recapture children, or he would gather orphans that were vulnerable and bring them to this compound he had. And so we got, somehow I couldn't tell you the details, but somehow we got an invitation to go up and visit him in this war zone. So we went up the day after Thanksgiving. We decided, let's go. So we got into our little van, and Charles was the driver. It was just Charles, Mike, Shay, and myself. And so we hit the road, and the road was an adventure in itself. This was, and the road wasn't really bad. It was mostly gravel with a lot of potholes, but very almost zero facilities on the way. I had a real issue with that, but I don't do too well without good facilities, and actually neither did Mike. Shay was the only one that didn't seem to bother, but anyway, we managed. Fortunately for us, just pulling over the roadside worked. So, and I don't remember what Shay did, and it really doesn't matter. But anyway, we made our rounds, and it took a full day of travel. It was 8 hours, 8 to 10 hours to get there. So we arrived at this guy's house, and unfortunately, I don't remember his name. And him and his family lived up in Soroti, in the town of Soroti, and he had a school there next to his house where he would bring these children and try to educate them, these vulnerable children. And he was kind of also made himself the guru of the town. Now, this guy was a real interesting character because there is no gentle way to put that. He was the worst racist, bigoted person I've ever met. And here he was in the center of Africa rescuing children. It was a complete, it was weird, okay? He didn't like the people around. He treated them, now he did treat them kindly, I have to say. He never treated them bad. Matter of fact, he did a lot for that village. He gave a lot. He gave of himself. There's no denying that he gave generously. He was spending his life rescuing these children. But just the way he talked and the things he called the people, and I was embarrassed for Charles, who heard a lot of this. But anyway, it was kind of, we just did kind of, we were there as guests, and we didn't want to do anything to jeopardize his hospitality, and so we just wanted to see what he did, but certainly we weren't real impressed with him, but personally, but we're impressed with what he did. I can't deny that. So anyway, we go up there, we stay at his house. He had built himself a really nice 4-bedroom house, a compound up there. And interestingly enough, next to his house, he built another compound with a school, and where all the people from the worked at the school lived, and he didn't let any of them on his property for reasons I've already explained. It's, again, very strange. And Shay had a lot of problems with this, and I'm surprised she was able to stay as calm as she did on the way he talked sometimes. But interestingly enough, just on a side note, he died just a few months after we were there of a either I think some kind of an embolism, or so he actually he wasn't there much longer after we were there. But to make a kind of a long story short, we were there, and he was going to take us up, and actually take us up into further into the war zone, and maybe look for some children, or identify, just show us what he was all about and what he would do. And he would often go with the Ugandan military to do these operations. He wouldn't go by himself, but the way he talked, it was all him. And he he carried around weapons wherever he went, and not that I think he would have ever used them, because the Ugandan army would have probably arrested him. But he was kind of like the big shot that everybody looked up to. So even the army kind of did, because they respected what he did, which was to rescue the children. So, well, the next day that we were all going to go up into the war zone and see what it's really all about. And turns out I woke up the next day, and I had real bad stomach issues, and the Niagara Falls running, that kind of stomach issues, and I wasn't in good shape to go anywhere. And so Shay and Mike went with this person up to into the war zone, and they had quite an adventure. I wish I could tell you. Unfortunately, I was back at the house trying to recover, eating bananas and crackers, trying to get my stomach back to in shape. Which, by the mid-afternoon, my stomach settled down and I was okay. But they came back late in the evening, and they had all kinds of tales. They confronted, they met up with the Ugandan army a little ways up, and then the Ugandan army didn't like the fact that he had brought, strangers with him, and there was a little bit of tension there, and I don't remember all of it. Mike had taken videos and pictures of this whole adventure, and then on our flight back home, somebody at the airport, a ground worker at the airport, stole his camera out of his suitcase, and he still had the chip with all this stuff on it in the camera, and so it was gone forever. So we have very little record of their trip up into the war zone. But they did have quite an adventure, and you can see, we kind of had fun there with here you see Shay with posing with his rifle, and we made the best of the situation, and Shay and Mike did learn a lot about the operation up there and what was going on, and I'm glad of that for them. Unfortunately, I didn't get in on much of it, but so sorry to disappoint you. I wish I could tell you more details, but it was quite an adventure. I actually spent the day with Charles. For some reason, I remember Charles staying behind also, and him and I did some things. We did wind up going into the village and doing some things, and then we went to the school next door and spent some time with the kids there, and things like that. So got a couple pictures here of that. I was relying on Mike taking a lot of the pictures in this, and so I only took a few, and unfortunately that's all we had, because his side of it was all gone. So then the following day we drove back to Kampala, and that was also interesting because our van broke down several times. Turned out we were able to fix it ourselves, but it took almost 14 hours to get back to Kampala, and that was an interesting adventure. And one little tidbit I have to tell you, which was kind of funny. The exchange rate in Uganda was back then was just crazy. It was 2,400 shillings Now it's actually quite more, but back then it was 2,400 shillings to a dollar, but a shilling in Uganda back then bought quite a bit more, and so we were on our way back, and we were delayed because of the van having broken down several times, and we were hungry. We were starving coming into town. There wasn't really much to get to eat. And so we're at this intersection, and there's this lady with a whole bunch of bananas on her head. And I thought, boy, that looks good. Maybe I'll buy some bananas for all of us. And so I called her over to the car, and I said, I signaled, can we have 4 bananas, And so she nodded, and I really didn't understand how much they were, and so I pulled out 100 shillings from my pocket, which is 100 shillings was 30 cents, 25, 30 cents. So I handed her 100 shillings. She takes the whole bunch of bananas off her head and shoves them in the car, because the whole bunch cost 100 shillings. So I kind of missed the thing. So she just shoved this whole thing in our car. So we've got this whole bunch of bananas, and we were laughing our heads off, and she was so happy, because for her 100 shillings was fantastic. And I'm actually going to correct that. I actually handed her 1,000 shillings, and the bunch only cost a couple of hundred. So she was just ecstatic. For her, it was 1,000 shillings. That's right, which is still only 50 cents, less than 50 cents. But anyway, she was, that was her whole income from the day, probably. So, which made us feel kind of good. But it was a funny thing, and we sure enjoyed those bananas. The best bananas I have ever had in my life, because we were so hungry, and so we ate those bananas like they were this manna from heaven. It was just that's what I remember about it. The best bananas ever. So when you're hungry, everything tastes better. And we were hungry, so we hadn't eaten. I think we had a little snack for lunch or something, but we were starving. And so that was a funny story. Next one will be trip 2, which took place about a year and a half later, and I went by myself, and that's the next video. All right. Thanks for watching again. Please subscribe to my channel, and you'll get more of these videos. Plus, I have other videos of just adventures that I'm doing now, and some things I'm doing, and I also talk about early retirement and some things like that in the video. So why not subscribe and check out my life and my memories. See ya.